Greetings. Last time we had just beaten the Diabolus, and now we finally have the chip so that we have access to standard mech tech. Our current Militors are fairly useful, but from now on we will likely face bigger threats, so having an upgrade to them will be very welcome. We have House analyzing the chip, and soon enough we'll have access to the facilities needed to upgrade our security force. Frog also makes a recovery after the fated battle, and thankfully is in good condition to get back to her duties. Although she's dealing with intense pain, things will likely be alright. Also, taking advantage of all the loot we accumulated from raiders and the odd event, we're going to try and improve our relations with our neighbors. They may not be very valuable gifts, but it's a way to get rid of loot that we won't use at all and have a small improvement in our relationship with our allies. And the better our relations, the better the quality of the guests and the amount of silver they'll bring to the strip. So all in all, it's a good move, even though it isn't all that impactful. Now it's just a matter of sending the transport pod and, well, we'll see a small change, but still good. And now we have the first part of getting better mechanoids, the subcore soft scanner. At least for now, the procedure to scan someone to get a better subcore won't kill them, and so we can still use our own colonists. In this case, we'll go and have Hannah scanned so that we can start producing the better mechanoids. Just as we get Hannah onto the scanner, we get a notification of a low psychic drone affecting our female colonists. The scan itself will lower her mood and her efficiency, but hopefully both those factors combined won't be too much trouble. We also appoint Frog as the protege, which in this religion is pretty much the preacher who will try and convert others to capitalism, I guess. And although I wanted to give this role to someone who could represent the courier, Frog will do for the time being. Progress on Gomorrah is ongoing, and we're starting constructions of the external area, the courtyard with the pool that is surrounded by rooms. This will alleviate the need on the Lucky 38 to be the sole functioning infrastructure in the strip, and will let us have a larger guest area. The plan is to pretty much try and shift most of the guest accommodations to Gomorrah for the time being. After all, the Lucky 38 will have to undergo a few changes, especially now that we need more space and infrastructure for all the mechanoid related facilities. Progress on the strip is also ongoing as we're finally extending the road up north and preparing things so that we can add the tops and the ultralux later on. A bulk trader shows up and we buy steel off of them, since after all it is pretty much a resource that is always running short, and it is good for our ideal legion to trade as often as we can, otherwise everyone will get a mood debuff. We also sell the signal chip, after all we have studied it and we no longer need it. With the new batch of steel we can continue construction on the road and infrastructure. After all, we want the strip to look as good as it can. In the meantime, a quest pops up. In exchange for 2 of our colonists, we get the option to have the following rewards. And although we are short-handed, one of the options is very tempting, and I accept. I send Riley and Frog. Although Riley is a very competent combatant, Hannah is a little more important since she is the only one aside from House who is good at social, and we do need to entertain our guests. And the rewards are sent. The most important, the Venometric Power Cell, which will help stabilize our power grid, if only a little bit. After all, it's infinite supply for no effort at all. We also get an Architect Eye, which isn't as important. After all, House is our only physician, and the only person who could really benefit from it is himself. So, no point in trying to keep it at this stage of the playthrough. On the subject of House, we upgrade his starting gear and we change his Airwire headset for a more powerful version. And we just make a little adjustment so that it looks a little better on him. A new trader shows up and I quickly get rid of the Architect Eye. After all, it is more useful to get the silver than to have it just on a shelf doing nothing. We also get the option to get colonists to join, but they would join as slaves, and since this isn't a Legion run, I will ignore that possibility. House is also not an altruist, so it's unlikely he would buy them just to set them free. Another thing that I adjust is something that I had unfortunately overlooked thus far. Although I did set up a guest area, I completely forgot to turn on the option to have our colonists try and entertain the guests and create friendships, which on the long run could lend us perhaps a new colonist. After all, if a visitor likes the strip so much, they just might join us. And that is more useful and reliable than trying to wait on transport pod crashes and other events. Winter finally arrives, and with it, the low temperatures and a halt to our progress in paving the outside. After all the snow cover makes it almost impossible to know what's going on. And it's also a reminder that we are in an extreme environment. Even though we don't see snow in New Vegas itself, in Rimworld the desert still abides by the extreme temperatures as a biome. Not one day into the wintry season and we suddenly have a quest pop up. The option to have Gumpy join us if we take on a pack of 3 manhunting iguanas, which seems easy enough. Gumpy himself has quite decent stats for a soldier, and so that makes him quite a bargain. And it is quite a bargain. After all, I count 3 iguanas, and I see 6 Securitrons making very short work of them. Just as Gumpy joins us, we get a set of visitors, and one happens to be related to him, but nothing comes of it. And in a callback to our prior episode, Randy Random decides to give us another transport pod crash. This one is named Jackie. Thankfully, her injuries aren't so bad that she needs emergency rescue. We have plenty of time to get her off the ground and into a cozy bed for recovery. And luckily, she does join us in the colony. So even though we're out of 2 of our regulars, we do have a little extra help. So our luck is holding up. Well, it was. Things were too good to be true, and we get a short circuit event. It blows up the wall in our casino floor on the Lucky 38 and starts a fire. Not only that, but since then our nights are filled with lovely rolling blackouts, as our current power grid has no way to sustain energy throughout the night until the solar panels kick in the morning. To make matters worse, we get raided during one of these blackouts. House rolls out with the Securitrons as usual, and we do manage to kite one of them out of the formation, so they're easy pickings for the Securitrons. However, on the next pull we get all 3 of them at once, and things get a little dicey as they close in and finally start meleeing with the Securitrons. Thankfully we get to win this fight, if only by a hair. We can't count on our luck to hold, so we need to take some measures. Thankfully, a weapon trader shows up and we sell off our useless weapons and buy ourselves some new guns. If our robots can't defend us completely, better that we get our colonists armed and ready. Gumpy gets a shotgun and Hannah gets a pistol. Progress on Gomorrah is thankfully proceeding well. With the winter temperatures, I have to set up a heating system for all the new rooms, but at least we have them built and ready to accommodate more guests. However, we still have the problem of the rolling blackouts. So to solve that, I set things up to build an advanced geothermal generator. After all, the basic version won't supply us with much energy, and this extended version just might help us so that we can have energy during the nights and the solar panels can pick up the rest of the work. Ideally, we will manage to have enough of a power grid that we can avoid batteries entirely so that we can avoid such explosive short-circuit events. But on to better news, we get our next gen of Securitron, a Bellicor which is an upgrade to the basic Militor, which will be our Securitrons Mark II. Unfortunately, we don't have any ongoing raids yet to test them, but thankfully we have a snowman target to show just how effective they can be in combat. Riley and Frog thankfully return from the quest work and can get back to working on the strip. I'm especially glad Riley returned, as he is our local craftsman, so that he can start working on the suit and outfits for the newcomers. We have staff rooms set up on Gomorrah. It won't accommodate everyone, but once we get the tops and the Ultra Lux, there will be enough staff rooms spread out across the casinos. Also, as a side note, the geothermal generator is completed and we finally have a better power grid. And since the basic structure of Gomorrah is finished, I use the contracts function of the improved trading mod to buy ourselves a large quantity of wood so that we can build all the casino tables as well as the beds and furniture for the new guests. A raid finally shows up and we get the chance to see the Securitron Mark II in action. Compared to their Mark I brothers, it is very effective and downs most of the enemies in this raid. Its rate of fire is considerably better compared to its brethren. Progress on Gomorrah is ongoing, and thanks to all the wood, we get things underway to have the casino open there. During this time we get another quest, a forced weather quest, which isn't all that terrible in exchange for Glitterworld medicine and plasteel, which will be sorely needed to make all those Securitrons. Also during that time, I start work on an altar. After all, the colonists are a little unhappy, their ideal legion lacks a temple, and with the Lucky 38 getting vacated, we do have a space for a small shrine. We just need to get the room impressiveness up, just to make sure they don't also get a debuff from it being too cramped. At this time we also start another extension to Gomorrah, a kitchen area, so that we don't have to rely on the Lucky 38 to do everything. And it will be a larger facility with more storage space so that we can prepare for future expansion. Also at this time, since we finally have a little more stone, we'll start building the structure out of that rather than just using up our steel. Although it's not a mental break, Jackie has a small panic attack, but that's not that important. What matters is the quest that pops up as she's having that break. Tails Nomads. So, for accommodating them for a few days, we get a few extra hands to help build the strip. Since we are made to accommodate a lot of people, it's no problem at all. So, after some consideration, I accept. After all, what's the worst that could happen? Here they are, and one of them is already eager to start working. Oh, and pay no mind to this thing that just arrived through the contracts. It's a secret tool that will help us later on. While all of this is going on, I discovered the reason of why Frog is always triggering the minor break risk. Due to her trait, she is volatile and unfortunately will keep triggering the minor break risk like a broken clock. Every small inconvenience pushes her to the brink. So we'll see if we can somehow find something to help soothe her nerves. Otherwise I'll have to start ignoring all the minor break risk pop-up warnings. Another quest pops up, and this one is all about keeping a prisoner in captivity who has paralytic abasia. Even though the rewards aren't anything all that special, it is easy work, and we do need the gold. So I accept this, even though there's a lot going on already. The quest is also very convenient, as the shuttle lands exactly on the Gomorrah courtyard, and it's very easy to put Cass in her prison for the time being. Jackie reaches a major break threshold, but don't worry, she's just exhausted, wet, and very hungry. To solve that, we send her off to have some food, and we give her an extra long recreation period compared to the others, as well as set up recreation for Frog and our temporary helpers. Speaking of them, Ray is also volatile like Frog insofar as he's the jealous type, and the fact that our colonists have better rooms than him make him upset. I'll choose to ignore that. After all, he's just here for a while. I'm sure nothing of consequence will happen due to that. Another raid shows up, and it doesn't seem like anything special, but unfortunately our raiders set up in a fairly defensible position, so I have to be more aggressive with Securitron, which means taking a few shots whilst repositioning, but better to get rid of them now than have them go to the strip. And with relatively minor damage to Securitrons and no losses, we get rid of them. The very next day, just as we're recovering from that raid, we get another one, and this time not only is the group bigger, but they're smarter. They split up their forces in two, and so I have to rely on the capability of the strip gate to hold the smaller force as the larger force makes their way around the walls. And just as Mr. House moves out to meet the other force, we get this. Well, it seems I should have minded Ray's comfortableness because our friends betrayed us. Thankfully, one of them is outside and will have to face the gate defenses. Mr. House himself sets up to defend against the invader force, and unfortunately one of them makes straight for him instead of engaging the Securitrons, so he has to retreat while his forces advance. Meanwhile, Hannah has to deal with Ray himself turning traitor. Far as the third traitor, well, it seems they're running amok and thankfully just decided to attack the lifter bot, then attack one of the colonists. We find a traitor and it seems she has done quite a bit of damage already. Thankfully Riley is right there to stop her. She seems more concerned with trying to break down the door. And oh, Gumpy almost walks right into her. Okay Gumpy, get yourself ready for a fight. She keeps slamming on the security door and supposedly would go right for Gumpy, but the cavalry arrives just in time. The full Securitron force takes on Linz and the last traitor is dead alongside all her raid. Now it's time to pick up the pieces. With that dealt with, we can finally turn our attentions to something a little more positive. The progress on the kitchen in Gomorrah is quite good, and soon enough we'll have a fully operational facility. And thanks to our good service to our guests, we get allied with one of the factions. We also get work started on a second geothermal generator as the strip is growing and so are its power demands, and I don't want to rely on an unstable power grid ever again. In the aftermath of that traitor raid, we get a new romance blooming between Frog and Gumpy, and we also get a very small group of raiders try and cause problems, but they get dealt with very quickly. The kitchen is finished, and Gomorrah is now fully operational as both a casino and as a hotel, so we can finally stop relying on the Lucky 38 for most functions of the colony. Overall, after that minor bump with the raid, the progress on the strip is steady. The second generator is finished and we can finally start focusing on our food production and other infrastructure. The Lucky 38 will soon be able to undergo a major restructuring so that we can have full production of all kinds of mechanoids, not only the light but also the larger ones. Also remember that surprise tool that we unlocked with House. Well, soon enough we'll have access to it, and with it we'll have a better, safer strip. After all, the house always wins.